So, picture this. Your franchise finally lands a generational talent, a game changer, a headline magnet, the player with the power to put your team on every highlight reel, every trending topic, and every sold-out arena in the league. That's Caitlin Clark for the Indiana Fever, a once-in-a-decade kind of star. And somehow, they're fumbling the bag. Badly. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Because what started as a Cinderella story, Clark bringing the spark back to a struggling franchise, is now unraveling into a cautionary tale of organizational missteps, coaching rigidity, and what looks increasingly like the beginning of a breakup. And guess who's waiting in the wings, ready to swoop in and give Clark the respect she deserves? That's right, the New York Liberty. Let's rewind to the core of the chaos. Stephanie White. The Fever head coach, whose system seems locked in a bygone era of basketball, has been insistent on one thing: not letting Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Clark is a transition monster. She's got court vision that sees the future, a deep shot that ignites arenas, and ball handling that turns defenders into spinning tops. So naturally, White's solution: stick her in the corner, make her play off the ball, limit her touches, reduce the game-changing tempo she brings. It's the basketball equivalent of buying a Ferrari and insisting it never go above 30 miles per hour. Fans noticed, analysts noticed, and most importantly, Clark noticed. And then came the injuries, groin issues that sidelined her for 10 games. Not minor bumps, not rest days. Actual, career-risking wear and tear that pointed to one thing: mismanagement. Clark's frustration wasn't just about minutes or play calls. It was about being ignored. Her body was screaming for help. Her style of play was crying for freedom. And White was out here in press conferences calling it a little something like Clark hadn't just been seen wincing in pain and literally tearing up on the bench. It's one thing to be stubborn with strategy. It's another to minimize your star player's pain publicly. And here's the part that should terrify Fever fans. Clark's circle is already shopping around. Quiet meetings, friendly sideline chats, dinners with Liberty staff. Her agent isn't just networking, they're positioning. And New York? Oh, they're ready. The Liberty have built a system around flexibility, around player empowerment, around winning. Head coach Sandy Brondello doesn't force players to fit her playbook. She builds around her stars. That's why Breanna Stewart thrives. That's why Sabrina Ionescu evolved. That's why their locker room isn't just competitive, it's functional. And Clark sees that. She feels it. She even picked Ionescu as her first all-star selection. Coincidence? Maybe. But if you're Clark and you've been bench late in games, told to play off-ball and downplay when injured, you're probably not seeing it that way. You're seeing a team where superstars get to be superstars, where the coach respects your game, where injuries are taken seriously, and where you don't have to beg to be heard. The difference in cultures couldn't be clearer. The Fever are spiraling. Meanwhile, the Liberty just secured a minority investment that valued their team at $450 million. That's not just money. That's power. That's future building. That's a message to every elite player in the league. We're serious. Meanwhile, back in Indiana, Stephanie White is scrambling. According to insiders, there's been tension behind closed doors for weeks. Team meetings have grown tense. Practices feel colder. One player reportedly described the mood as walking on eggshells. White, once confident in her vision, is now trying to meet Clark halfway, but it's too late. The damage is done. You can't unminimize an injury. You can't unbench your star in crunch time. You can't tell someone to quiet down and then panic when they consider leaving. Clark, who's known for her composure, has reportedly grown more vocal, more assertive, less willing to sugarcoat her frustrations. And why shouldn't she? She was brought in to change the game, not fit into a dusty system. The team's veterans? Also a mixed bag. Some support Clark's direction. Others, like Kelsey Mitchell, have struggled to adapt to Clark's pace and chemistry. And when you're not all aligned behind your star player, it shows. On the court, it's in the awkward spacing, the missed passes, the miscommunications. Off the court, it's in the body language, the quiet frustrations, the eyes that don't meet in the huddle. And still, White doubles down. Her post-game comments after a recent loss were so dismissive. Fans flooded the Fever's socials calling for her replacement. "It's about growing pains," she said. "We're figuring it out." But how many losses does it take before figuring it out becomes refusing to change? Now contrast that with Liberty coach Sandy Brondello, who just told media, "Every player is different. You build trust by listening. That's how you win." That's not just coach speak. That's a recruitment pitch. And trust, well, Indiana's running low on it. The irony? The Fever had it all. Clark's arrival was the biggest thing to happen to the franchise in years. National games, sold-out arenas, merch flying off shelves. It was their moment. And instead of building a system around their star, they tried to fit her into a box. But you can't box Caitlin Clark. Not when she's already outgrown the moment. Now, she's looking toward a city with brighter lights, a bigger platform, and a franchise that knows what to do with a player like her. If Indiana doesn't wake up soon, if they don't make real, structural changes, they won't just lose games. They'll lose her. And if that happens, Stephanie White's legacy won't be about game plans or coaching trees. It'll be about the coach who let a generational star walk out the door. So now the Fever are on the clock. What's it going to be? Pride or progress? Because Caitlin Clark has already made her statement. Now she's just waiting for her team to catch up. The warning signs weren't subtle. Caitlin Clark didn't need to storm out of a press conference or demand a trade outright. Her body language told the story. Her on-court reactions, the slight eye rolls, the tired jog back on defense, the mid-possession shoelace tie, these weren't just throwaway moments. They were messages. Silent but screaming. And it's not just the media catching on. Players across the league are watching. Some silently empathize. Others see opportunity. Because when a player like Clark is this unsettled, the ripple effects go league-wide. If you're a rival front office, you're not just paying attention. You're preparing your pitch. And the Liberty are already ahead of the game. They've been laying the groundwork for months. Subtle public praise from team leaders. Brondello keeping the tone respectful, but curious. "She's a fantastic talent," she said earlier this year. "We'd love to see her thrive in the right environment." Translation: she belongs somewhere she's valued. Clark's agent, known for being strategic and aggressive when it comes to brand building, has already had a presence in New York. Dinner meetings, game visits, maybe not formal negotiations yet, but enough to spark buzz. Enough to make Fever management nervous. Enough for Stephanie White to suddenly start referring to Clark as the centerpiece of our vision. Something she didn't say at the start of the season. That shift in tone isn't growth. It's desperation. And it may be too late. Because if you look at how the Liberty treat their stars, it's not just about basketball. It's about partnership. Breanna Stewart isn't just a scorer. She's a voice in team decisions. Sabrina Ionescu has freedom to direct tempo, to shoot from the logo, to own her game in a system built for her. There's trust. There's respect. Meanwhile, in Indiana, Clark's still being told to adjust, to wait her turn, to sacrifice her rhythm so the veterans don't feel displaced. But you don't draft the biggest star in years just to ask her to blend in. You build around her, or someone else will. And Clark knows this. You can see it in the way she lights up when playing with teammates who get her. When the ball moves, when the pace picks up, when she's allowed to read the floor, that's when the Fever look like a real team. That's when Clark reminds everyone why she's the face of the league's future. But those moments are still too rare. Buried beneath mismatched rotations, slow sets, and questionable substitutions. And the locker room? Well, it's not as united as the Fever would like you to believe. Sources close to the team have hinted at growing divides. Players choosing sides, tension between vets and younger players, quiet power struggles. Kelsey Mitchell, one of the team's top scorers before Clark's arrival, hasn't exactly been subtle about her frustrations. Her on-court body language, choosing not to pass, waving off screens, speaks volumes. And Natasha Howard, another veteran, has reportedly been caught in the middle, trying to balance experience with the shifting dynamic. That kind of locker room tension isn't new in sports, especially when new face takes center stage. But it's up to the coach to manage it, to lead through it, And that's where Stephanie White's grip is loosening. Publicly, she's tried to downplay the conflict. "We're figuring out how to gel," she said recently. "These things take time." But the truth is, time is exactly what she doesn't have. Because the season's moving fast. The fans are getting louder. And every game where Clark looks frustrated is a missed opportunity, not just for wins, but for building something sustainable. Meanwhile, the Liberty are out here stacking chips. They've got cap space. They've got a championship foundation. And they've got the marketability Clark's camp craves. Imagine the brand deals, the arena energy, the media attention. New York wouldn't just elevate her game. It'd elevate her platform. And in today's WNBA, that matters. It's not just about basketball anymore. It's about cultural influence, merch, moments, highlight reels that hit millions of screens in seconds. Clark and Liberty Teal, that's not just a move. It's a movement. And let's talk about fan sentiment for a second. In Indiana, Clark has been both idolized and scrutinized. The expectations are sky high, but the support system hasn't caught up. Every misstep is magnified. Every missed shot is followed by a social media debate about her attitude or fit. Contrast that with New York, where the fans already get her. They understand flair. They celebrate confidence. And more importantly, they protect their stars. Just ask Sabrina. Clark doesn't need coddling. But she needs a franchise that treats her like a long-term investment, not a rookie lottery ticket who still has to earn the right to lead. She's earned it 10 times over. So where does this all go? Best case scenario for the Fever? They course correct, fast. That means giving Clark the ball, redesigning the offense around her strengths, and bringing in teammates who complement her style. It means publicly acknowledging missteps, owning the mistakes, and building forward, not just around Clark's talent, but around her vision. Worst case scenario? They keep doing what they're doing. And Clark decides she's done being polite. That could mean trade rumors turning into trade requests. It could mean player option years getting declined. It could mean a slow exodus, one where fans, sponsors, and ticket buyers all start looking elsewhere. Because if you can't hold on to the most exciting player in the league, what message does that send? One more thing that hasn't gotten enough attention: Clark's injury timeline. These groin strains aren't just minor annoyances. They're the kind of issues that, if mismanaged, can linger for years. Think about that. The Fever already risked playing her before she was 100% to try and stop a losing skid. That's not just bad strategy, it's reckless. If they truly care about her long-term health and career, they need to treat her like a franchise player now. Not when it's convenient. Not when the season's on the line. Now, because the WNBA is changing. Fast. Player empowerment is here. And stars like Caitlin Clark? They're not waiting around anymore. She's too smart, too driven, too valuable to be trapped in a system that doesn't see her. So the clock is ticking. Either Stephanie White steps up, admits her miscalculations, adapts the system, and starts treating Clark like the cornerstone she is, or Indiana will watch as the most important player they've ever drafted slowly packs her bags. And if she ends up in New York, don't say you weren't warned. The fallout from Caitlin Clark's friction with Stephanie White isn't just about one team anymore. It's starting to look like a league-wide warning siren. Clark's situation has become the centerpiece of debates on WNBA shows, podcasts, and in locker rooms across the league. Coaches are watching it to figure out what not to do. Players are whispering about it between drills. Front offices are quietly updating their free agency wish lists. What's happening in Indiana isn't isolated dysfunction. It's an object lesson in how fast a franchise can mishandle generational talent if it doesn't evolve with the moment. And here's the thing. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of resistance. The WNBA, like many leagues, has its gatekeepers. Coaches and execs who pride themselves on old-school structure, rigid systems, and veterans-first cultures. And while there's a place for that foundation, it should not, be used to muzzle the rise of modern stars who bring a different kind of electricity. Caitlin Clark isn't just a shooter or a passer. She's a tempo setter, a system shifter, the kind of player who forces a game into a new gear, whether the defense likes it or not. Trying to bottle that up into a slow half-court set with low pick-and-roll frequency? That's not just a tactical misfire, it's malpractice. Meanwhile, word around the league is that multiple players, not just on the Liberty, have reached out to Clark privately with some variation of, "You deserve better." That's how deep this has gone. It's not about one player being unhappy. It's about the rest of the WNBA realizing that this could happen to them too. And then there's the branding angle. You better believe Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, all the brands invested in Caitlin Clark's success, are watching this unfold nervously. They've built marketing campaigns around her image, her charisma, her leadership. What happens when the footage from Indiana looks joyless, disjointed, and frankly depressing? What happens when your star player is being benched in crunch time or played out of position while trailing by 20? Those brands didn't sign up for dysfunction. They signed up for highlights, headlines, and high-octane basketball. So now, the Fever aren't just risking team chemistry. They're risking brand viability for the entire league. Let's zoom out for a second. The WNBA has never had this much attention. The influx of new fans, massive viewership bumps, and packed arenas aren't just because the league suddenly started promoting itself. It's because players like Clark made impossible to ignore. Whether you love her or hate her, she's moving the needle. And yet, the Indiana Fever seem to be the only ones who didn't get the memo. It's not just coaching philosophy that's out of sync. It's entire organizational vision. Look at their player development, their rotations, their in-game adjustments. There's no cohesion, no momentum. One game, Clark has run the offense with complete freedom and putting up 12 assists. The next, she's parked in the corner while a fourth-year guard dribbles out the shot clock. That kind of inconsistency isn't just confusing, it's demoralizing, and it's showing in her demeanor. Gone is a relentless fire we saw every night in college. What we're seeing now is a player second-guessing herself, who hesitates before driving, who passes up open shots, who's starting to wonder, is this really the best I'm going to get in this league? That's not on her. That's on the infrastructure around her. Meanwhile, the Liberty aren't just sending feelers. They're building the pitch. Behind closed doors, they're calculating cap space. They're imagining how Clark's transition game would mesh with Sabrina's three-point sniping and Stewart's off-ball movement. They're looking at Madison Square Garden and picturing a Clark-led super team under the bright lights. And the scary part? That vision works. A Clark move to New York wouldn't just shift the balance of power. It would create the WNBA's version of a super team era. Suddenly, every free agent would want in. TV networks would ramp up coverage. Ticket prices would spike. And the league, whether they like it or not, would belong to Caitlin Clark. That possibility is what has the Fever sweating. Because if she walks, they're not just losing a franchise cornerstone. They're losing legitimacy. They'd be the team that had everything, the generational talent, the attention, the momentum, and fumbled it. And don't think the WNBA league office isn't feeling the pressure either. As much as they want every team to thrive, there are quiet conversations happening about how to retain talent in small markets. Because if Caitlin leaves Indiana, what does that say to the next number one pick? This goes deeper than just one season. Back in the Fever locker room, sources say Stephanie White has been trying to reconnect with Clark. Team dinners, one-on-one meetings, more collaborative game planning. But the damage may already be done. Once trust is broken at this level, it's hard to glue back together, especially when the player knows their options. And Clark has options. She's not just a player anymore. She's an ecosystem. She can change ticket sales, move merchandise, redefine team identities. She has power, and she's learning how to use it. You want proof? Look at how she handled the All-Star draft. Drafting Sabrina Ionescu wasn't just a basketball move. It was a statement, a message that she respects her game, her leadership, and, maybe, the Liberty's approach to building around stars. The chemistry between the two wasn't just visible, it was natural. Fast cuts, quick decisions, no hesitation. And the fans ate it up. That game looked more like what the Fever could be if they stopped resisting and started trusting their generational talent, if they gave her the freedom to cook. Instead, Clark returns to Indiana post-All-Star break with questions hanging over every practice, every timeout, every substitution. Will this be the week they finally let her lead? Or will this be another rerun of clunky sets, no help defense, and a coach blaming effort post-game? Because the truth is, we've reached the tipping point. There's no going back to the learning curve narrative. That window is closed. Now it's about trajectory. And if the Fever don't get on board with the direction Clark is trying to take them, they might just watch her take that trajectory elsewhere.